like a baller place, and now it's just a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah, well, I'm not in San Francisco right now, and so we're live right now, right?
Yeah, we went live. Hey, everybody, welcome. Rule 0. Today's topic, anger and going purple. As always, we got Rollo Tomasi underneath me, and Tomasi
guy.
And then Troy, I haven't thought of a catchphrase yet, something about the man with game, yada, yada, yada. And then, new to the show, that way, Jack. We just finished an hour and a half, 2 hours on Red Morning, where we were talking about game, storytelling, damn lies, and I think everything, pretty much. We kind of hit everything, even Magic the Gathering and Warhammer of all things. But I guess we'll, lead this one on here. We'll get right into it. We'll get in a little bit later as to where you can find us all. If you haven't found us all by now, I'm surprised you haven't. But
yeah.
So there's obviously the anger phase, and that's a pretty common thing for most guys when they first unplugged.
Right.
The part I liked is where you suggest the going purple part afterwards. And I'd love if you could expand a little bit on what would take a guy from a traumatic experience, put him into an anger phase, but then he kind of rejects it and ends up going right back to his old way of thinking with the new tools at his disposal.
I think we've talked about this on a previous podcast that we used to be a part of. But we've never talked about it on Rule 0. So everything, what's great about this is like now we can sort of come back to all of this with fresh eyes, right? So when it comes to the anger phase, what the anger phase is when you unplug from the matrix, when you unplug from your old blue pill way of thinking, when you read into the red pill, when you read my book, when you read anything by Ryan or pretty much anybody on this panel right now, I think. But it's not just, I don't want this to be like the Rollo and Friends show. It's not just my book. There's a lot of people who are really good at what they do. Troy. But so when you come into the red pill from your blue pill past, there's what we call the 5 stages of unplugging, and those mirror the 5 stages of grief or something like that. I think it's like grief, how you deal with grief, I guess, like how you deal with like death. And it's I forget the progress. It's like denial, anger. Can you guys help me out here? I think it's like denial, anger, negotiation, acceptance, those kinds of things. It's the 5 stages of grief acceptance, I guess. And one of those stages is always anger. So it's like, what are you going to do about it kind of thing, or can you do anything about it? And people always get on me about this, like, well, it's, the red pill is only anger. It's like, no, it's not. There's different phases of sort of accepting what the red pill is presenting to you. People get stuck in that anger phase for sure because they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know how to make all of this new information work for them. So they don't know what it is that, like, they don't see the opportunity that's present in the red pill. They don't see the like, now that they've been cut away from that blue pill stuff that they've sort of built their entire lives about. Like if you let's just say, for sake of argument, you're 5 years old and you're taught by your female teachers from the time you're 5 to make women and girls your mental point of origin, to be of use, to be a useful beta, to sort of prepare you to become what I call a beta in waiting, so that when you get to be about 30 years old and women are ready to come off the carousel, that you're going to be right there, and Mr. Handy and the guy that she was always dreaming about. And so you're going to be able to play into her epiphany phase. A lot of that conditioning, whenever I talk about the blue pill, I don't really talk about it in other terms other than conditioning, because that's what it really is. It's a psychological conditioning over the course of a lifetime. So the things that you believe, whether it's like about intersexual dynamics, or some people want to say, well, it's politics and it's religion and it's all that. Well, yeah, that feeds into it. But when we're talking about the red pill, I'm talking about intersexual dynamics. Okay. If you want to take this into the realm of race realism or politics or whatever, you know what, that's another channel. That's another thing. Okay. So take that and go play in another playground with that, because that's not what we're talking about here. So when you're building your entire life around this idea that, women smell, or girls smell nice, you should be nice to them, you should carry their books home from school, you should, all this stuff that you've been fed for all of your formative years, all your teenage years, pretty much all of your young adult years. And then suddenly you come across this thing called the red pill that sort of rocks your world and you can't unsee it. And that's the first thing people get pissed off about is they say that we want to talk about anger. They can't unsee it. They can't go back to the way that they were before. So they can't go, like when we talk about like MGTOWs, when we talk about men going their own way, if you become red pill, doesn't necessarily mean you have to become a MGTOW, but when you go red pill, you can't help but live in another way, going your own way, right? Because if everybody is, all the guys that you know, all the people in your family, all of your friends, everybody you've known up to, the point in your life where you become red pill aware, if all of that is false, that's going to start a little bit of anger in your, that you were stupid enough to believe all this stuff for as long as you have. But there's this cutting away from that old paradigm, that old way of thinking, and that's also a source of anger. The other source of anger is that you can't unsee it. You can't go back. There's no putting yourself back in. Now, a lot of guys will try to do that because they think that when we're talking about like the purple pill and stuff like that, they can't unsee the red pill, and they know they can't unsee the red pill. But that doesn't mean that they can't find rationales to make all of those blue pill ideals something that they can realize, or they still think it's possible. And that's where I talk about the purple pill. I've written like several essays about this. The purple pill is guys who have become red pill aware and they can't accept it. They just simply, for whatever reason, can't give up that idealism. They can't give up the blue pill. Like I still want the perfect wife. I still want I still want the girl smell nice fantasy.
And that's definitely where like Troy comes in too. Cause that's been like his MO for the longest time. It's shit all over these guys.
I still want all of this, so they try to force fit their red pill awareness into a blue pill paradigm. And like I've said before, is like, first of all, you don't need to do that because there's all kinds of opportunities working from a truthful, informed, educated position of the red pill. It's just that these guys don't know how to do that. They don't know how that's why guys get really frustrated with me, because I don't offer prescriptions. I don't say, here's my 12 rules for life, guys, just make your bed and everything will be fine. And I don't come up with some sort of one size fits all thing for red pill, because guys aren't one size fits all. It's ludicrous for me to tell some guy who lives in, Mumbai, India, or wherever, and say, hey, look, here's the formula. Here's the secret, magic pill that you have to take, or the magic steps that you have to follow to live a perfect life, because this is tried and tested and it's worked for everybody, which is bullshit. It's selling you. It's selling you sweet sunshine bullshit to make you feel better about the truths that the red pill opens your eyes to. And so guys get angry about that. And so, like I said, how do guys deal with that anger? They deal with it through maybe going MGTOW. They deal with it maybe by giving up, by going black pill. They give up by saying, you know what, I can't compete in that anymore. So maybe we shouldn't talk about competition. Maybe if everybody just magically cooperated and we had this, unity movement or some, let's talk about magical Brazilian power crystals, and we can force fit red pill into that. And it's all bullshit. It's just because you don't see the opportunities that are present right in front of you that are in your lap. You just don't know how to use those things.
Well, that's a great segue, because Troy, I mean, you've talked a lot about like the S&M parties, a lot of the degenerate stuff, and how it can be kind of fun in that. And I've never actually heard, I was talking to Jack about the Batman origin stories. I've never heard yours if you had an anger phase, but I'm pretty sure you have at least a bunch of experience of guys who dip their toe into that little bit of degenerate lifestyle and then quickly pull back.
Yeah, I mean, probably, I've got a whole we could do the whole show on my sort of those kind of stories, but I won't subject the viewers to that. But I mean, I don't know really. I mean, like I never really, I don't think I had a really big anger phase in the kind of way that you're describing. I think the way it was for me was I observed a lot of this stuff throughout the course of my life, from my childhood when my parents, divorced, and then my father got remarried. Then he had a relationship with my stepmother for 20 years. They divorced. She went off with another guy. All these kinds of things were happening. And then relationships that I had with girls and stuff that I saw around me. And then if you want, going then into sort of, the crazy nightlife parties and all that kind of stuff, I saw the way that people behaved in that kind of very raw sexual environment, and all of this stuff just sort of mashed together. And so then when I read, say, Rational Male, it wasn't, as other people have said, it was more articulating what I kind of already knew or what I'd already seen. in a way that probably I hadn't been able to for myself at that time, rather than this incredible realization where I suddenly got really angry. I just sort of thought, yeah, fair, I get this. This accords with my observations of my life experience. So, but then I never, when I got into the sort of the red pill stuff, I never thought of it in this incredibly negative way. I just thought, firstly, yes, that accords with what I've seen. I can relate to this stuff. This makes sense. I can feel on a primal level this stuff feels true to me. And secondly, I thought, okay, so what can I do with this stuff? How can I make my life better? You know, what are my objectives? And if my objective was I want to meet loads of, you know, cute girls, then how can I use this stuff in order to assist me with that? How does this knowledge help me? I never sort of thought, oh my God, this is terrible, and now I hate everybody, and I'm going to go and lock myself in a room. So that's sort of that sort of anger that people talk about. I get it, but at the same time, it was never really like that for me. And I think I kind of just wish guys could move on from that and just sort of embrace, like Rollo says, the opportunities that are there.
Yeah. Oh, tip of the hat to Raziel Schnitzel with the $5 super chat. Tips his hat to Rollo for doing the banging on the table gesture.
That's your screenshot for this episode.
Yeah. But do you think a lot of the trad sort of type guys they say, isn't it more, they say, okay, right, I understand this red pill stuff, but it shouldn't be like that, and so therefore let's find ways to turn the clock back, or if not turn the clock back, let's find ways to change the way that we interact so that we lessen the effects of this red pill stuff.
Yeah, a sexual cartel. If we all act right, then everything will be okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. My thought on it is I always laugh that, you know, wish in one hand, shit in the other, but I'm curious what Jack thinks on this one.
There he is. You caught him.
I was adjusting my mic.
No, that's fine. So the trad lie that if everybody just acted right, if you stop stealing our women and sleeping with them and ruining them, then everything would be perfect and everybody would be wonderful.
It's the beautiful lie. It really is the beautiful lie. Like, even if we quit doing it, like, they'll find other guys. And I remember that a while back, I called in a show that shall not be named with that same question, where I discussed with a friend of mine, we are now hacking Tinder, so to speak, but we had the debate, are we ruining these women? But we figured out, like, if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And women, since hypergamy is their default programming, they're going to throw themselves towards Chad anyway. What they want is not necessarily a time machine, in my opinion, but they want a whole rewiring of female nature, which is not going to happen.
Yes, and hence people making conferences to train women how they should be. I mean, that's got to be the thinking behind that, hasn't it? You know, right? We'll have a whole conference so that we'll teach women not to fuck Chad, but to fuck guys like us.
What?
You know,
no one would do that.
Oh, dude, I don't like whatever, but time's gone. I remember when I was seeing this idea first coming about, there was like an hour-long conversation about how guys were promising, we make sure that none of the speakers ever sleep with women, and they were so fixated on that. I'm like, I think these guys are trying to make their own version of Tinder here.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but I mean, whatever. In the Me Too age, I wouldn't set that up. I wouldn't step foot in there.
Well, that's a common pickup artist thing. I think one of the reasons why we talked about that was there was this idea, I think, that sprang up after PUA had become a little bit more widespread, and people started, like, some of the pickup artists, quote unquote masters, were questioning whether or not they should be doing certain things, or if certain techniques or whatever were, quote unquote, ethical at the time. And so there was this real big push. And even I believe even Mystery was talking about this, like, you need to leave women better than you found them. And it's like, no, that's really not possible, because you're also dealing with the nature of women in the first place. So leaving a woman better than you found her, the fact that you're leaving her is not going to fly with respect to, like, how she's going to interpret that anyways. And then the thing that pisses people off, particularly on the purple pill side of things, is that they believe that because of Chad, because of PUAs, because of guys who have no morals or have no ethical sensibilities or don't want to, want to leave their women better than they found her, that they're doing it for their, like, PUAs or whoever else, red pill, whatever, they're doing it for their own selfish aims, and therefore they are ruining women for them. So that when they finally get their turn with that woman that the PUA had, that she's damaged or she's got some sort of issues that she wouldn't have had otherwise had Mr. PUA or Mr. Alpha, that she happens to be widowed from, hadn't ruined her for the next guy. And so there's this, it's almost this collective, it's almost socialist, really. I mean, it's like, don't go after women if you don't have any intent of marrying them. And that's sort of the tradcon idea, but it's also very much a purple pill idea, in that you're like, just because you know this stuff, and God forbid you ever use it to your advantage, but just because you know this stuff, it is now your ethical and moral responsibility to use your superpowers for good. And to
you notice how good aligns with what they want? Like, don't you manipulate these women? And I'm trying to manipulate them. And I'm doing it for good reasons, because you're bad and I'm good.
And what does that end up being? That ends up being what women want, because they still have this feminized ideal. They still think that completing women's mating strategy is the right thing to do, because they have been conditioned for a very long time by their female teachers and by a feminine primary culture to believe that consolidating and completing and making a woman whole and giving her that family and man up and marry those sluts, right? I mean, man up.
That's what she wants, because I believe it.
She just forgive all of her indiscretions, as long as she's got the sun hat and the sundress on and she sounds sincere, then everything's fine. And they want to play in. I mean, really, all of their goals align perfectly with pretty much every blue pill goal that you were taught as a 5-year-old child to believe in.
Oh, women.
All right, quick thing here, just for Rachel or Raziel Schnitzel again. Another $5. Yeah, another $5 super chat. Serious now. I try and source resentment from my ex to fuel me when I'm lazy in diet, exercise, or discipline. Is this not the best way to get motivated? I don't know. Jack, take the lead on this one.
It's like, hatred for somebody to fuel you can be good in certain aspects. Like, no, you know what? No, I don't think it's a good thing, because what you're doing is you're still having her as your mental point of origin. You want to prove her that you're better than her. Like, I'm going to prove her wrong for dumping me. And you shouldn't do that. Like, she is still a focus of your road to improvement. And you need to replace that with something far more interesting than her. She dumped you for a reason. She will not benefit from the fruits of your labor. So why have her as your motivation? You need to have yourself as your motivation. I mean, and of course, Rollo, you have a post about this, right? Revenge, I believe it is.
Revenge. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
rejection and revenge.
Yeah, I mean, in 10 years, you're going to have the last laugh anyway. So let that happen naturally, instead of being so focused on what she is doing. Because if you keep doing that, it's not going to help you forward.
Yeah. That's right. You need to remove her from the equation. She should no longer be part of the equation in any sense at all. Now your paths have diverged, and that should be it. She should now be dead to you. You shouldn't think about her in any sense at all. So yeah, I agree with Jack on that.
Well, I think, and if you read that essay, it's called Rejection and Revenge. And the first line in there, I stole from The Princess Bride, because there was, I think it was Inigo Montoya says, there's not a lot of money in revenge, right? And that's every once in a while you sort of get these little tidbits from pop culture, I guess, but it's true. There's not a lot of money in revenge. If you are focused on making somebody feel bad or making sure that karma works in your favor. Maybe you were even like wrongly accused. Maybe you were on the sharp end of the stick on that, on whatever the circumstances are. But the more you focus on revenge, like a lot of people will disagree with me on this. They think, oh, well, once I get mine, once they get their comeuppance, right, then then I'll feel better and then I can move on. I'll have some closure. It's like, no, you need to just freaking close it right now, because all of the energy that you're wasting on revenge is energy and effort you could be putting into yourself to make yourself better.
Rollo, aren't some people making that their whole business model though? Resentment against other
absolutely,
other
they
content
are.
creators.
Well, I mean, you can tell somebody is a professional when they go back to work and they create something and they produce something, because at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, it's not going to be about the accolades or the trophies on the wall or anything. It's going to be your body of work. It's not about what you get patted on the back for. It's your entire body of work. And so what have you done with the time you were granted in this life? What did you do? Did you have a family? Did you help people out? What exactly did you produce? And unless you're showing me something that the thing is people get so focused on that revenge fantasy that they don't produce anything, that they think that being productive is actually seeking revenge. And when it comes to women, when it comes to guys thinking, well, I'm just going to go live a better life, right? Because what do they say? The best revenge is living a better life, right? Or something like that. It's success.
Yeah, that's Aaron. Aaron Clary used to say
yeah,
that.
living it, and in a sense, that's right, but only if you're successful because you've wanted to make an impact, because you wanted to make yourself successful, not as having somebody to like rub their noses in it. Because I'll tell you this: anytime I have ever been focused on revenge, it's always like 2 years after I got mine. I always think, why did I bother with that? That's 2 years I could have spent, doing something better with my time. And it sort of ends up becoming really, really hollow, because with time, you don't care anyways. You become indifferent. And that's the whole thing, is like when we talk about hate, or we talk about love or hate or whatever, it's like you need to learn indifference. And a lot of guys don't understand the power of indifference.
Because being aloof is one of the best tools you can have.
It's just not caring and not really worrying about all that crap that went on, and you're moving on. And if you want to show that you're a better person, then go build something better, go make something better, actually do something. I don't care what that is. Maybe that's whatever your passions are, but the more time you spend on revenge, there's not a lot of money in revenge.
And
I
what
agree.
happens?
All right, we'll do a quick little segue here, and I'll cut back to you guys. The CPOM's $5. He's asking about if it's a good or bad thing to relate better to men and women older than you. I'd say it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, unless it's the women you're dating, in which case I'd say same your age or younger. Couldn't be the worst thing, but it's kind of off topic, so we'll get back to this. I think, was it Jack or Troy? Which one of you guys was about to go on there?
I wanted to mention that what happens when you get your revenge. I mean, you've been focused on rubbing it in, but after that, what happens then? Like, your entire motivation model drops. What do you do from there? You got nothing. So better start focusing on the right thing, from the beginning, than wallowing in. It's actually quite pitiful to do something like that. So,
Brother Morpheus gave a good example of that on Twitter. He shows how pitiful it is to get those revenge fantasies.
Yeah, very true. But it's actually very pitiful to do that and have that as your main focus in life. I'm going to show them. Yeah, and then what? They won't care about you anyway. So why do you care about them?
Yeah.
Rollo, do you remember? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Troy.
I was just going to say, then you're letting them live in your. The phrase is live in your head rent free kind of thing, and that's the danger, isn't it? And really, you should move on and just do something totally different.
Yeah, Rollo, do you remember the Royce article about breaking up, like how to break up with a girlfriend and what happens when you meet the ex? It was like his first year stuff.
Yeah,
but he goes into that exact thing, like the kind of revenge stuff.
High-fiving the ex? That one?
Well, yeah, I think that's the one. I think that's what it's called. Where he was talking about if you meet the guy who's banging your girl now, and that revenge thing starts coming into your head, because in your head you'll always have that mental model of it being a harem, and you've just lost one of your harem members to another guy, even though it's just she dumped you in that.
Yeah, a lot of guys struggle with that. That's one of the most common things I get from guys who are when I'm counseling guys who are breaking up with their girlfriend or they can't seem to get her out of their heads, right? They're like, I can't stand the thought of her having sex with another guy. And I actually wrote a post about this, and there's some real psychological issues that go along with that are actually chemically based in men's brains. So like when you are with a woman and especially if you're having sex with her, I mean, think about the chemical cocktail that you get on a regular basis from that woman. Like when you meet her, you're infatuated with her, you have the chemical rush that comes from the lust that you have, and then you have that sort of the oxytocin that comes after that makes you like, connect together. And so you have all of this. I mean, it's really like a drug addiction in a sense, and it's not dopamine, by the way. It's the natural opioids that your body produces. But people want to say, oh, it's a dopamine hit. Well, it's more than that. It's the natural opioids, and it's also like the endorphins. And there's a whole chemical cocktail that comes along with a lot of different like behavioral manifestations, right? So like I can pretty much influence the way you feel by altering your body chemistry. It's not hard to do. That's why the reasons why I say emotions aren't like these magical spiritual experiences that a lot of people like to think of, because it's very easy to affect your emotional state based on your chemical state, based on your brain and your hormones and everything else. But what happens is guys get addicted to that, and that's their source of reward. And when you pull that reward away, you slip into operant conditioning, right? I mean,
But what about love, Rollo?
Well, yeah. What about love? Yeah. What about love? Well,
Baby, don't hurt me.
Well, I mean, we can argue whether or not there's a spiritual sense of anything, but I think that when it comes down to just the emotional side of things, remember that's all influenced by your biochemistry. I mean, that's one of the reasons why when people are coming off of heroin or they're coming off cocaine or whatever, that was their source of reward. And so they get emotional about that. They think they can't live without that anymore because, the thought of not being able to get their fix every day is hard to live with. And so why do heroin addicts like kill themselves? Because they know that reward is no longer, nothing is ever going to compare to that reward anymore, because I got to get clean. I got to get sober. I got to find some way to replace this. Well, there's no replacement for that kind of feeling for some people. Right. Yeah. And, the same thing happens when you break up with a girlfriend, right? That's your source of reward. And it's particularly dangerous if you're a blue pill guy and you believed all your life in the soulmate, and you believe all your life or you have really acute one-itis. It's really hard. It's almost like breaking a drug addiction to find that source of reward somewhere else. So what happens is you get guys who will tell you, I can't stand the thought of her with another guy. And so what do? They go and they kill that guy, they kill her, they kill themselves, they kill their kids, whatever, because they physically can't get over it, and they mentally can't get over it. And then you've got the guys who will say like, well, I can't stand the thought of her with somebody else. How am I ever going to live, a quality life without her? And they don't see that what's happening is that source of reward has been removed. It's operant conditioning, like when you got the rat and the rat presses the lever and the little food pellet drops out. Well, what happens when you press the lever and it doesn't come out anymore? Well, you
press it more.
You press it more and you do a novel. It's called an extinction burst, right? It's like you do all these novel things and you try to reconnect that. And I think a lot of guys, one of the reasons why guys like go to drugs or alcohol after a breakup is because they're trying to reestablish that good feeling. And
and here's a good segue in this one too. I was thinking about this, and it's the one argument I've heard that's in that of about a poly lifestyle that's good, is that it short circuits that kind of hardwiring. And Troy, you're the closest I got to an expert on this, so you'll have to go in with your best experience. Those guys who do a lot of pickup, who maybe do, I wouldn't go so far as to say marry a girl that you're going to be poly with, but being cool with the plate, having sex with other dudes, or being cool with being in a sex party, for example, where you have to basically come to terms with sharing your girl in that. What kind of mental differences have you seen between those people and then the people that Rollo describes that have this chemical sense of ownership on the high that they get from that woman they're with? Do you understand where I'm going with this? It kind of got a little rambly. Oh, you're muted, Troy.
I think the hardcore sort of player character who is cool with it, I think for a start, it's going to be plates that he is not that emotionally connected with. So if you're somebody who is, as they say, spinning plates and you've got sort of 4 or 5 on the go at a time, then you're probably not asking them questions and they're probably not telling you. So it may be the case that they are sleeping with other guys or whatever. It's just not something that you get into. So you're cool with it because you're not that emotionally enmeshed with them as yet. There's a further sort of there's an even more pimp-like sort of version of that, if you like, where the guy is so stone cold, doesn't give a damn, that he will almost share his girl around with friends and things because he just doesn't care. Which is, I don't think many guys get to that stage, but I've certainly been aware of guys who've been like that in the past. But I think even players, though, when they get emotionally attached to a particular girl, they're going to experience the same sort of effects that Rollo's talking about. You know, they're going to have had that sort of chemical connection with her, and it's going to be very hard to break that, or very hard to think of her with somebody else. Which is why most players, when they're sort of spinning plates, they keep it pretty surface level with each of those girls.
Ah, so there's really like not any defense at all then.
I don't believe. I personally, from my own experience and from knowing other guys who are serial players, who are who have very high notch counts and everything, all of them that I've met have come into this same issue. I mean, the dirty secret in the sort of the pickup industry, if you like, is that a lot of these guys actually have girlfriends, or a lot of these guys actually do fall into sort of one-itis type relationships behind the scenes. And of course, Mystery is a great example of somebody who had all of those skills, and then we know the things that happened to him subsequently. I just think that there's a difference. I think some players can be very stone cold, kind of pimp about it, and they can hold the feelings at bay. But I think most of them, when a girl does get under their skin, they suffer the same effects as everybody else. So I don't believe there's any cure for it, if you know what I mean, other than you just make a decision with yourself that, right, I'm just not going to get emotionally involved with any girl, and I'm just gonna spin plates for as long as I can.
So basically resolve, which is awesome, because Jack, we were talking about this morning too, and you had a great point about failure being the only drug that works. I guess if you wanted to talk about that one again on here.
Oh, absolutely. Like, the question was, are psychedelics a good crux for new perspectives and helping you to what was it again? Helping you to succeed in something. But the only way you can succeed in something is to try something. And I mean, kudos to you if it works out in the first try, but it won't. Mostly it won't. You need to fail to gain experience. It's like an MMORPG for you nerds out there. No, seriously, you need to fail. You need to drop your face on the asphalt to gain the experience, to know what it's like to do something wrong. Only then can you actually find out what you should be doing differently.
Yeah, so even that, in this case, I guess it's the cocktail of hormones that's the drug of choice.
Yeah. Could I just clarify one thing that I said before as well? I think there's an idea that if you're playing the field, you're seeing all these new girls all the time, then you're kind of immune to those feelings. I don't believe that's true unless the guy is, particularly leaning towards being a bit psychotic. Really, I think you can certainly spin plates for a very long time and not get emotionally involved with the girls, and you can not really care if they're sleeping around at the same time. But I think as soon as anyone starts to get emotionally connected with the girl, those feelings come into play, and it's very hard. And guys just say, yeah, we'll just go out and sleep with another 10 girls. Well, yeah, that could help to an extent, but it doesn't help completely. It doesn't help entirely to get rid of those feelings.
I think a distinction needs to be made between poly lifestyles and spinning plates. Okay, like I came up with the plate spinning analogy way back in the early days of all of at So Suave, actually, I think. And I came up with plate theory. The whole idea of it was so that guys could find some way to, well, first of all, to date non-exclusively and to sort of broaden their sexual, choices and experiences, so that they can figure out what it is that they want and what they don't. Because back in those days, back in the So Suave days, one of the biggest problems a lot of guys had was they would get overly attached or overly emotionally invested in a girl, and it was all about the soulmate myth, and it was all about one-itis, and Rollo, how do I avoid all this? It sucks. Well, one way you do that is you have to keep women at arm's distance emotionally, and you have to be able to explore your options. Women do this all the time. Women are natural plate spinners. I don't think a lot of guys really understand that. That's part of their mating strategy, is to find they're looking for the best and the brightest, right? They're looking for quality in a guy, and hopefully that's going to be some good balance between, how sexually hot he is and arousing with his capacity to provide and be a good father and all that too. And that doesn't necessarily mean that those two priorities come at the same time, and they will often change. Those are reprioritized throughout a woman's life, depending on what it is she needs and what her most immediate circumstances are. And so I think that it would behoove a guy to spin plates, to have a roster of, I'm not talking you got to have a dozen girls, but I'm saying, you got to have like somewhere between 3 and 4 women that you are considering. And you don't even necessarily have to have sex with all of them. They just have to be like women you would probably like to have sex with. But
not orbiters, essentially, not orbiting them.
Orbiters, and because if you're saying, "Oh, this girl's great, I really want to be with her," but she's playing games with me, or she's sending me mixed messages, when you get that, it's like these guys they become overly invested in that one woman because that's their only option that they have going. So that's spinning plates in a nutshell. But like when I look at this and people say, well, isn't poly just spinning plates? It's like, well, no, it's not. And I'll tell you why, because poly still presumes that there's an element of monogamy. It's if you're going to ask me what my analysis of quote unquote poly is today, it is an arrangement to allow women to still explore their hypergamous options while still being attached to one guy. And it's like a security blanket. It's like, well,
have their cupcakes and eat it too.
I want this guy. Well, okay, then this is the joke, right? I'm sure we've all seen this episode of Friends where Rachel and Ross take a break or whatever, or they break up and they say, you know what, I'm not ready for a long-term relationship. But if we're 30 and we're still single, let's make a pinky promise right now to marry each other if we're still single at 30. Wait for me, Ross. Wait for me when I'm 30. Once I'm done with the cock carousel and I'm used up and I've explored my options and found out that I can't lock down an alpha, wait for me and be ready for me right there. Now, how great would it be if you could establish a quote unquote alternative relationship strategy where that's possible, where you've got one guy who's waiting at home and doing the babysitting and is this dutiful beta who makes a good chunk of change and pays the rent on time and everything else, but you still get to go out on the weekends and cruise Tinder and find the alpha that you still want to have sex with. Because
but he can too. That's just it. Yeah, and it's probably just as easy for him as it is for you.
Well, and then I hate that too, because it's like what happens is women see that, and they, like, particularly feminist women see that, or I know that's redundant, but women see that and they think, well, that's just men being able to have multiple side chicks all the time and have one main chick. And it's like, that's not the way it works in 2019, my dear. Like, most guys are beta. We go back to the Pareto principle, 80-20, right? 80%, at least 80% of guys will never be able to realize that. But if that's their only option, and I've written about this in 3 separate essays just this year alone, if that is their only option, it becomes a mating strategy for a beta male. Well, I can't get sex any other way, so I guess I'll be poly, and then that'll make me seem like I'm hip anyways, and I'll get pats on the back for being progressive and being quote unquote secure with my masculinity. And that's the first thing people will attack. They'll say, well, what are you, not secure enough in your masculinity to go let some random dude, yeah, exactly, to let some random dude have sex with your wife or your girlfriend on the weekend? Gee, imagine being you. It's like, no, when we talk about the, men's paternity needs and everything else, it's like, so anyways, I'm getting really far off track, but that is a source of anger for guys when they, when they see that, when they understand women's nature, when they understand the nuts and bolts of hypergamy, when they start to understand the nature of the game that they've been involved in for pretty much the majority of their life, yeah, you get pissed off. That's a phase. You're going to have to deal with that, and you're going to have to move past that. Some guys get locked into it, sure, but this, like just talking about poly and trying to find some sort of workaround to serial monogamy with promiscuity, how can we make that work? Well, let's socialize and normalize poly to be the norm. So, and if you don't agree with it, you're insecure in your masculinity.
Fair enough. Well, hey, Jack, that book you just had up there.
Yes.
Promiscuity.
Walk us through it.
Best. Oh man, we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that one. Fortunately, we did not get into the sperm affecting female DNA because that got you into trouble, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. Telegony or telogeny?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It's even in the beginning of the book that the semen of men does change the DNA of women, and I do remember Donovan making jokes about that. Like, she's been with so many guys, her eyes turn from brown to blue, and I was like, what does he mean with that? But now we found out. Promiscuity is about the mating behavior of males and females throughout species in general, mammals, you name it, like bugs, arachnids, and humans as well. And there was a very good point about monogamy in this. Like, this book answered the ancient question, does monogamy exist? Only when it benefits her or from social programming. That is the only time monogamy really exists, because you've got sperm competition and or from social programming. That is the only time. Wait, why do I have a echo?
Somebody has an echo. All right, well, here, while you're fixing that one here, Troy, what do I do with that? I'm not nerdy enough to be able to like look at the girl and do the statistical analysis with the Terminator eyes. I'm just a guy who wanted to go to a sex club to meet a girl, and now I found out that, the 8 dudes before her are like a mind virus. but can I do anything with this, or is this the kind of information that it is what it is? I can't really deal with it, but life moves on. Like, what do I do with it?
Well, I think it. For me, I think it is what it is. I think it's a very interesting. I think it's a very interesting piece of information. But I mean, this, going back to the title of the show, I mean, this is what. When we think about there's the anger phase in terms of, I've just read all this red pill stuff and I'm really angry because I can't believe everyone's like this. But then there seems to be a subsequent anger phase, which I see in the sort of the purple pill guys the whole time, which is like more like, yeah, I kind of get all this stuff and there's this scientific research, but I'm still angry about it because it shouldn't be like this. And that's the kind of the anger that, because I sense with a lot of these purple pill guys, they're trying to. They're seeking their own denial from the truth, if you like. They're seeking their own denial from what is plainly observable, and they get very, very angry whenever they're challenged on it. Which is why people which is why guys on Twitter get so angry. Some of these purple pill guys who are supposed to be the nice, caring, sharing ones, who aren't the sort of the evil red pill dudes. These are some of the most aggressive, angry dudes that you come into contact with, and I think it's because, if their worldview is in any way challenged, particularly by any sort of scientific evidence, they just lose their shit, So I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that, but if you read the quote that Jack just read, if you type that on Twitter, I mean, maybe we can try, but if you put that on Twitter in a thread, you'll just get this, you'll get hundreds and hundreds of these guys.
Mm-hmm. I need to do that.
Descending on you, calling you a degenerate and a nihilist and everything else, because it doesn't fit their worldview.
A lot of purple pill guys need to read this book because sperm selection and sperm competition, like, we've been dealing with this paternity issue a lot lately, like guys finding out the children they raised aren't theirs. It's all in here about.
Is this out of interest? Is this significantly different to what you have in Sperm Wars, or is this a step forward from what we've read there?
I haven't read Sperm Wars yet, So I can't say. Rollo, you know anything
I was
about
gonna
that?
say, yeah, it is a little bit. I think it's more current too.
Yeah. Okay.
This was written. I think this was published in 2001, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
kind of old, still almost 20 years old, but and Sperm Wars I think is even older than that. But this one is interesting because it's written by a guy who is like a Evo Bio. I think Tim Burkhead is an evolutionary biologist or something, and it's for what it is. Yeah, I mean you can show nuts and bolts, right? You can show statistics, you can show the numbers, and you're always going to lock horns with guys who are just simply not going to accept that because it goes against well, pretty much their blue pill conditioning, but it certainly goes against the ideals that they hope can be true, that they want to be true at the end of the day. Like, well, leave her better than you found her, so I have a good girlfriend when the time finally comes, right? Well,
Define
it's like,
better.
yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is like there's this idea, because they were taught from a very early age to prioritize women and make women and womankind their mental point of origin. Anything that goes against, I mean, okay, so if that's the thing, and you make women your mental point of origin, and now you mix that with ethics, now you mix that with morality, now you mix that with religion, you got a pretty powerful belief set behind that. So when you say, actually, you know what, the sky is blue, and here all you got to do is look, and it's not actually green. Guys don't want I don't want to look at they want to find some way why you're wrong and they're still right. And it's really like I had this one tweet out, I think it was a couple nights ago, and I said, in the coming year, I would say within the next decade, within the next 10 years, there's going to be some new technology. There's going to be some new, advent. We're going to have some new information that will, beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove pretty much everything that the red pill has been talking about for, going on 20 years right now. And it will be so undeniable that guys will just simply have to wake up to it. Like guys would always tell me this, like they would say, well, I watch these videos of RSD and I look at Owen and I see him picking up these beautiful women, and all he has to do is just sort of twirl them on the street and they fall in love with them and they want to have sex with them. And of course, what everybody says is, oh, those are just paid actresses and that's nonsense. And look how slickly produced their videos are. I'm going to say that there's going to be something, or there's going to be some way to empirically test the ideas of the red pill, maybe like some sort of like surveillance device, or maybe like some way to sort of record the interactions of guys who are players in real time. And
that was why they canceled Google Glass.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. Well, this was always the argument, though, wasn't it? The idea was always, I mean, was it Krauser that said the thing about, pickup artists are almost like the social scientists, and they've amassed all this data over 15 years, and through this data, through the shared experience of all of these guys, we're able to say with some certainty these are the ways that women behave and everything else. And the purple pill guys are aware of all of this, because the purple pill guys all came through the same, have read the same stuff as we have, and they're aware of the same things as we are. But they now seem to be saying, they're now trying to find an intellectual way out of it, aren't they? They're saying, but those pickup artists, you guys are just degenerates, and the girls that you've interacted with are all broken women. So that's not the true picture. This is what someone like, the guys who are on the other channel now will be saying. They'll be saying, well, no, these guys are degenerates. They're just meeting degenerate girls. There's this whole other group of girls and this whole other group of people where it's all different, and all of this stuff that you're talking about and all this stuff that the rational male talks about is all irrelevant, because it doesn't refer to these people who are all these decent, God-fearing individuals, I suppose, where none of these rules apply. But to me, that just sounds like an attempt to evade the truth. It seems like an attempt to induce one's own denial, but maybe I'm seeing it wrong. I don't know. I mean,
the biggest difference between red pill and purple pill is that purple pill is monetizable. Seriously, like the purple pillars know. They know about female nature, but they know guys they don't want the truth, and guys will pay for a lie.
But doesn't it?
That's the big difference.
But doesn't it, in the end, it seems like a short-term strategy, because we have all these purple pill guys at the moment who are making a big thing about, we're overturning the red pill, and now it's time for this new age of crystals and
I am the
shamanic
son of the manosphere.
yeah, and shamanic dancing and healing, and it's all going to be wonderful. And we're finding these new strategies based on energies and things. But when all of that doesn't work, and when the divorce rate remains the same as, or indeed increases, and when the guys who've listened to these guys and then go into relationships and inevitably they don't all work, and you know things go badly wrong, then surely these purple pill guys are going to be discredited.
You know what? I actually got a good answer for that one. There was one of those suicide cults in, I think it was the 1800s, talking about how the extinction of the Earth was going to happen in like 1896 or something like that. Time came, it didn't happen, and the weirdest thing they found is that people didn't go, oh, well, it didn't work. They actually doubled down on the lie and built up another lie to cover it.
Yeah.
It was something like our virgin sacrifices, or I can't remember what it was they did, but they invented some other mechanism for it.
Yeah. That happened in the Mormon Church, didn't it? I think the Mormon Church was very it was all of this, you know, it's going to be the end of the world soon. It's going to be the end of the world, and then it wasn't the end of the world. They said, okay, well, it wasn't the end of the world then, but it's going to be soon. So we've got to carry on doing this stuff.
It wasn't real communism.
Oh yeah, the amount that people double down on lies is, I think that's why it's like maybe the current cadre of purple pilled guys aren't going to be able to cash in long term, because you can only fraud for so much till you get called out, but there'll always be somebody there.
Well, I mean, if we've learned anything from all of this bullshit that's happened since June here, we can see where people, like just what you're saying before, purple pill is monetizable because it says, look, here's the red pill and here's some truths about the red pill. But don't worry, you can still have all of those blue pill things that you wanted to. You can have all of that stuff that you were taught and were manipulated on for pretty much all of your life. All that good stuff, you can still have that if your Myers-Briggs letters align, if you say 3 Hail Marys every morning, and it's like, it's always been like power of positive thinking, and all of this this motivational speaking kind of stuff has always been marketable. Ever since like Norman Vincent Peale wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, we've had guys like Zig Ziglar, L. Ron Hubbard, Tony Robbins, all of this stuff. It's just now the barrier to entry is completely gone. So whereas before you had to write a book and you had to go and do these speaking engagements and you had to reach people on a by person basis, now you can go and start a blog. Now, in fact, there are guys who have seminars who will teach you how to do exactly this. In fact, it is so marketable that people have found ways to market the marketable, right? And so you get guys who see this as a good job opportunity, because what's great, do I want to work a 9-to-5 job as a greeter for Walmart, or do I want to make a lot of money being a life coach? Well, the problem is once you do that, you don't go back. You have to make your message sound palatable. You can't tell people what they need to hear. You have to tell them what they want. What does my audience want? If you're listening to some guy right now saying, I always listen to what my audience says, and then I try to give them what they want. If you're in this sphere, you're doing it wrong. Okay. You need to tell people what they need to hear and what will benefit them in the long term. But that's
do you want to be a crack dealer or a methadone clinic?
Exactly. That's not marketable. And so you get these guys who get into this quote unquote life coaching revenue stream. That's how they make a buck, right? And then once you get that kind of money, and you're making more money than you ever made before by just selling sweet sunshine and being a relationship expert, where do you go from there? You don't go back to a 9-to-5 job after that. You don't put that on a resume. So you're forced to keep selling that bullshit for as long as you can sell that bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I got to do a quick cutoff. I want to get this chat out of the way because it's blocking your face here.
That's fine.
The $5 from JC. It's a good question. Whoever wants to take it. He wants some clarification on how you can call a woman a plate if you're not sleeping with her, especially when women who won't sleep with you by the second or third date usually get nexted anyway. So who wants to take that one?
I wouldn't call her a plate.
I wouldn't call her a plate either.
In my view, that doesn't meet the definition of a plate, because for me, the definition of a plate would be a woman that you are sleeping with her. So if you're not using a plate, I think that's it, really. Right.
Well, I think he was mentioning before, because we were talking about that, and we say she didn't have to be a woman we were sleeping with. And I think in that point, what we meant was committing to. But I figured that's what he was asking for clarification on there.
Right. Well, when I wrote Plate Theory, when I wrote all 6 of those Plate Theory series that nobody seems to want to read, even though they're like all down on Plate Theory, when I wrote that, it was with the intent of teaching guys how to stay non-exclusive, how to date like a fucking adult, okay? How to actually have a date and not talk to that girl afterwards and go and talk to another girl and actually feel comfortable with having multiple, multiple women in your roster and not to feel bad about that. Most guys are serial monogamists. If you go and you look at, I've written about this several times. It's called strategic pluralism theory. It's what most guys subscribe to. That's their fucking game. Their game is I have to invest all of my effort, all of my romantic, intimate effort into one woman. And because they know, and in the back of their heads, that if they don't, they don't have those opportunities, whether that is by, whether that's through their moral training or that's just the way that they just know that they're not attractive enough to get multiple girls. Once a girl expresses some kind of interest in them, they put everything on there. I want to marry this girl. She's my one. And they just pour all of themselves into one woman because it behooves them to follow a K reproductive strategy, right? There's R and there's K. K is like invest all your interests into one woman. Whereas guys who are more naturals, guys who are like more alpha, the 20% of guys in the Pareto principle, those guys are R select. I believe I'm getting this right. R selected, where they can spread the seed, and that's men's natural mating strategy would be to spread the seed. And if you don't believe me, go look at all. Ask yourself, why is pornography so widespread? Because men are naturally R selected. But so
between the two of you guys, then the way you're describing the plate theory, I think the way to answer his question is, as long as she's a potential, she's a plate. But as soon as she's no longer a potential, like he said, after the second, third date, if it's not going anywhere, that plate falls and you find another one.
And that's why you have the 3 strikes rule as well, which goes hand in hand with iron rule number 3, which is any girl that makes you wait for sex or by her actions is implying that she's making you wait for sex. The sex is never worth the wait because now it has been mitigated by something else. It's no longer natural, urgent sexual tension. It's no longer natural, endorphin fueled desire. It is now, well, I guess he'll do if this other thing doesn't work out. And so that's
the other type of plan B.
Well, another reason why you spin plates is because you need that time to figure out what this, is this girl really into me or is she not into me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Alan Roger Curry here, and I'm gonna say that's one of the benefits I see in his whole mode 1 direct game approach is you it's pragmatic, it's efficient. I'll give you that.
Saves one hell of a lot of time.
Yes.
I think it's I personally think it's better to get blown out more quickly as somebody, as a dating coach, as somebody who I work with guys in this very field. I always say to guys, it's better to get blown out quickly because you don't want to be wasting a lot of time. Even in a face-to-face interaction, you don't want to be wasting a lot of time with this sort of like trying to be friendly, trying to get in under the radar. It's much better to go in not as direct as he would say, but it's better to go in directly. Make it clear, even via sub-communication, what it is that you want. And if she's not down with that, then you get a fast rejection. You can move on. It's far, far better. The whole thing about, game for me, really, or a big component of game is getting guys out of the grey area and getting men and women out of the grey area, because otherwise men can be in this grey area of, well, is she going to sleep with me or is she not going to sleep with me? And it allows women to exploit that. I don't mean that in a terrible way, but it just allows women to sort of keep their options open as well. It's far better to force somebody to get off the fence quickly and then either go with it or move on to the next prospect.
Attention is the coin in the realm of girls, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, first date, after that, she's a plate. After the first date, whether she sleeps with me or not. If she doesn't sleep with me after the third date, she loses plate status. Because, well, I'm giving her free attention. And don't use women. Oh, God, do I really have to explain what I mean on this one?
You do.
We want to sleep with girls. But we all know. I know. I'm sorry.
Wait, what? We want to sleep with what? Really?
What? Oh, my God. Really? No, but what I mean to say is, like, women make rules for betas, break them for alphas. We know this. If she doesn't sleep with you after the third date, she is either very prudish, maybe Christian, you name it, whatever, or she's seeing you as a beta. Get out. Invest your time and attention in somebody who's enthusiastic about you. Like Troy was right. You're investing time and attention in somebody who isn't giving it back to you, who's not as invested in you as you are in them. And that's why mode 1 is so great. It cuts all the crap and it gets right to it. You want me or you don't want me. I tweeted this out about the whole Tinder thing. Like, you're going back and forth. You're a match anyway. Like, the attraction is there. You ask for the number and she goes like, oh, I don't give out my number that easily. Never mind. Cancel everything. Like, unmatch. Done. You don't go and negotiate anything. She doesn't want to give you the number. You're out. Next. Don't invest time in somebody who you need to jump through hoops for.
Yeah.
Because stating our Godfather right here, they might not fuck you, they might not fuck me, but they fuck
somebody. They're gonna fuck somebody. Let me read this real quick. I've got another great post here. It's called 3 Strikes. This is kind of basic stuff. We're going like red pill 101 right here. Because what people are going to say is this: well, what do you mean? Do you want an easy chick? Do you want a girl who's going to give it up to you on the first date? Of course, everybody goes binary, and that's the reflex is to what do you want, a cheap, easy girl? Is that what you're talking about? Because those are low quality girls and they're damaged and right? Well,
do you want an expensive, difficult one? Like, what the hell?
Well, here's what I said. This was the last part of 3 Strikes. I said, put it this way: with just average game, in 3 dates, you should be able to determine if her desire level is high enough to want to fuck you. In 3 dates, you'll know if her desire is genuine or if it's mitigated by something else. Another guy in rotation, sexual hangups, filibustering, whatever. In 3 dates, you'll have had sex or you'll have had the I want to wait, I need to be comfortable talk. If you have sex on the first date, a same night lay, in all likelihood, she's really hot for you and into fucking you based on physical criteria alone. If you have sex on the second or the third date, she is into fucking you and probably wants a relationship because she wanted to give you a token impression of her not being easy. If she fucks you after the 4th date, you'll do as her first alternate. And if you're sexless after 5 to 6 dates, you've probably been at it for well over 6 weeks, and the medium is the message. It's time to next.
And guys tell themselves these lies. We didn't get into that one, Ryan, but they tell themselves after like sometimes even 8 dates, sometimes even after 6 months of dating, well, she's a quality woman. She just wants to save herself.
You know what's hilarious?
I can feel it in my crystals.
Those guys that they do that, and then they get that saving the best one. Another article by Rollo, where they think that really wow, this girl's great because she's so difficult. And she just doesn't give any place, so she must have been like this for everybody.
That's my highest trafficked post I think I've ever put up was saving the best.
Darkest one. It's your darkest.
It is the darkest one, but I think it's also the one that hits home for guys the most because I think that when guys get another source of anger, here we go. When guys get into a relationship and they become what we call awakened while married, and I'm sure Ryan understands where I'm going with this. When they become awakened while married and they realize that the game that their wives were playing with them in the beginning, maybe they're alpha widows, maybe they are, aficionados of romance novels, or they love 50 Shades of Grey or whatever, but they get like just sort of vanilla starfish sex once a week or twice a month, whatever. And they realize in black and white, in no uncertain terms, that their wives or girlfriends are actually far more sexual than they let on, or they have been in the past, become far more sexual because they've never seen their husbands or their boyfriends or whatever as anything other than the beta that she sort of had to have this compromise with.
He was the best commitment she could find.
Yeah, that she could get at that time. And when you talk about things like another good post is my post on Plan B. How 45% of women have a Plan B guy, and guys, the guys that they're in the relationship with, know the plan B guy, and they understand that if they're ever out of the picture, that guy's going to step in, or she would like for that guy to step in. And it's like when you see that, or when you see that in particularly if your wife was doing amateur porn with, you know, threesomes or foursomes when she was in college, and when she was so crazy in her college days, when guys understand the nature of women when it comes to hypergamy, when it's alpha seed, beta need, and they look at that and they realize that they had to jump through hoops and they had to follow a set of rules that the other guys that she wanted to have sex with never had to follow. That might piss you off. That might say, what am I making this investment for? Shouldn't I get the best there is? She should be saving her best sex for me because I'm the one she's decided to be with for the rest of her life.
And that's the worst part, is because she hamsters what she's doing now as her best sex, because she's the David Franco example, the good girl. Well, I'm a good girl, and good girls don't take it in the pooper. Therefore, that old me doesn't exist, just this new one.
Well, that's true. Well,
and that's the thing. And they think, no, he's getting my best because I'm acting like the perfect woman in a relationship. I'm acting like the good girl, and this is my best.
Right. And
it shows like a complete lack of empathy for women to think from the perspective of a man who's like, no, the pooper's your best. Get out of there.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and there's going to be a million guys who are going to watch this and they'll go, oh man, they're advocating for the best sex is anal. I can't believe it. Well, here's the thing, is like there's something that is the best sex, whether that's anal. Sorry, I'm in the South right now. Whether that's anal, whatever, like for some guys, just getting a blowjob might be like the best sex that they've ever had because their wife won't give them a blowjob, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say there has to be something that is the best sex that they could get that they're not getting from their wives. Getting sex at all for the guys in sexless marriages might be the best sex, but then they realize at some point along the way that their wives were far more sexual than they are with them. And they didn't have to go and make sure that the drapes and the carpet matched from Bed Bath & Beyond to get laid, right? They didn't have to jump through these hoops to get to that best sex. But it's not even the best sex. And that's why one of the reasons why like guys and I don't mean to pick on Christians here, but most, like I think it's 85% of Christian men have admitted to being like addicted to pornography. Well, why is that? Shouldn't they be having like sex like rabbits with their wives, since though that's the only person they can ever have sex with? Well, the reason for that is because they realize that they're missing out on something. They'll watch something on Pornhub and they'll go, wow, those guys are getting that, and my wife has never looked at me like that. She has never. It's not like women like to say, well, I could never be that for you, or I can't compete with that. It's like, no. But
you could try.
There are some things, like you were saying, you tweeted this week, Ryan, when you were talking about how your wife should have first right of refusal to your libido, but if she refuses it, you should find someone else. You should find some other way to do it. Well, that's the way that Christian men do it. They go and they look for pornography because their wives probably would have the first dibs on their libido. Wife says, no, I'll pass. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Well, where are they going to go? They, morally, they can't go and go to a hooker. So they go to pornography. At some point, it's going to come out. But that's
and then they get found out, and then the porn becomes a disease, and it's this whole self-flagellation thing. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, so you got these guys who believe, like when I talk about saving the best in that one, guys get really upset with that because they see themselves in that situation and they don't know what to do about it. They don't know where to go with it. And for some of them, the answer might be dump that bitch, DTB.
Well, I was going to say, Troy, Jack, what are their options?
Well, I was just going to say, just connecting this back to the purple pill thing, because I'm kind of interested in people's people.
I love how we're all trying to keep this on topic.
Well, I mean, some would say that this is down to vetting, this is down to selection, this is down to did you select the person properly? Now, I think that's nonsensical, but some would come back at us now and say, well, yeah, what you're talking about is absolutely fine, but if you'd have just got together in a proper way in the first place, then these problems wouldn't arise. Which I reject, but nevertheless, that view is out there. So I think one of the issues that we see in the space at the moment is there's a lot of anger that's being created by almost a denialism or almost a willful refusal to see things actually as they are in favor of how they would prefer them to be.
I'd say it's a good call. What do you think, Jack?
Well, maybe you should just go Old Testament and be all like Moses up in this bitch. He had multiple wives. Why not you?
Well,
I was thinking Martin Luther. I did that quote of his when the Christians were doing their thing, where he basically said the same thing I said, that the wife gets first refusal. If she's consistently shooting your man down, he goes in front of the church, calls her out in front of everybody, and then if she still doesn't do anything, just go have sex with the maid. That was like Martin Luther, of all people, saying that in one of his sermons. So I'm going, I don't know what you got now, Christians, because he's kind of like Martin Luther is like to Christians what Martin Luther King is to black Christians, which is fitting because they have the same name.
here's what's gonna happen though. People are gonna hear this and they're gonna go, well, you just need to man up. You just need to be a better guy. You need to be the man that she wants to have anal with. You need to be the man whose dick she wants to suck. You have to be the man. And it's like,
Here's the thing. I love that. That's the process though. Because you got to be that guy.
Yeah.
The best way to become that guy is be the guy that other girls would want to do it in the pooper with. And then the wife will all of a sudden start acting right because she's got two choices. Desire this guy or hit the bricks. And it's not even a conscious thing like I better do this to keep him around. Their brains hardwiring's like you're going to lose this high quality man, and you know he's high quality because he's got pre-selection. And so she starts getting turned on by this whole thing. You can't get that with porn because it's not going to pull that what's that, Dire Straits? Who's the guy who fucking reached into the Turn Me On music video? Rollo, what's the 80s band? Tears for Fears?
Tears for Fears? I guess. I'm
you
sorry.
know, Take Me On, Take My
aha.
Yeah, like aha. You can't reach to that porn screen and pull the chick out. So that doesn't get the same visceral response that it does when there's a real life girl saying, yeah, I could do that because I'm saving my hymen for marriage. Mm-hmm. There's a shout out there to the Catholics, the anything but Catholics. God bless you, girls.
Ryan, didn't we mention that? Like, always have one foot out of the door. And this is what most Christian guys don't have because, well, mostly because of ideology and religion, of course. They, like, imagine telling them that breaking up is always an option. They'll freak out. Mm-hmm. But by having that mental state of breaking up always being an option, you'll reflect that towards her, which will make her let her hamster spin. As in, oh, wait, he's high quality. He's getting valuable enough to have more options. I might want to get my shit together for this gun.
Yeah, and this isn't like a conscious thing. This is subconscious. This is the lizard brain on her end doing this discussion. So the desire's real. It's not a negotiation. We just like rephrasing it as if it's a conversation that she's having like that. But all she knows is all of a sudden I'm wet. I don't know why. It must be this dude. Maybe the pooper's on the table now. I don't know why I keep going back to that reference. Just I'm a 12-year-old at heart.
Oh, God.
Seriously, first time on Rule Zero and we're talking anal. God,
it's funny. I have this one post. I just put it in the chat right there. It's called Submission, and I talk about why women hate anal, and it's because it is a complete act of submission on a woman's part. Right? I mean, there's not much pleasure involved for a woman when it comes to that kind of stuff. So it's like, why would women have to really have peak levels of natural desire for a guy to want to give up the ass? And
it's right up there with cooking for him.
And again, and people will say, well, that's nasty. That's immoral. And you guys are sodomites or whatever you want to. It's like, okay, well, if it wasn't that, it would be something else. Maybe for some guys, maybe anal is so far off the table that, a blowjob would be the ultimate act of submission for a woman. Well, okay, then let's say it's a blowjob.
Well, let's be fair. Let's walk it back. Missionary position, but she's got her nails in your back. I think
you can go
the tamest Christian thing we can do.
Yeah, by order of degree, right? So, yeah. So I don't know. But here's the thing: is like, what's going to happen is guys are going to say, well, they can always fall back on stuff like that. Well, if your wife doesn't desire you, then you married the wrong woman, or you're just meeting the wrong kinds of girls.
Sweet, ditch her and find the next one.
That's the thing. One thing about, like, particularly with the moralist kind of variety of the purple pill, is there's always a fallback. And I've discussed this with Pat, and I've discussed this I actually discussed it in my next book too. There's always the fallback of God said, right? Now, God could be anything in this instance, but there's always sort of that unassailable truth, right? So if God told you one thing, then that's the, well, women are hypergamous and they'll take me for a ride and they might leave me, and the state is involved in marriage, and marriage is a downhill, or there's no upside to marriage for a man today. Don't get married. Well, God said you have to. Okay, I guess I have to. It's as if any rational argument, any kind of rational debate is always negated by certain things. Now you could say in the religious sense, it's like, well, God said you have to get married, so you've got to at least hedge your bets, but you still have to get married. Or it's an easy rationale for, like, you guys were just misaligned. You have mismatched libidos. No, you don't. You don't have mismatched libidos. It's that she want to have sex with you. Well, you need to be the kind of man she wants to have sex with, but don't use dread. Dread would be immoral, but you still need to be the kind of guy who inspires dread. And Rollo will never talk about that, although I've got probably 4 or 5 different articles about exactly that.
So all the hard stuff you need to do without doing it.
Yeah.
So the girls we're fucking are broken girls, and the girls who don't want to fuck their husbands are the bad people to marry.
Yeah.
Well,
which of the good girls again?
You're doing it with the right intentions.
So who's left?
Exactly.
Yeah, where are the good women at?
Yeah.
Half of them are divorced, so those weren't the right women. And the other half are riding the thought carousel, so those aren't the right women. There's basically 7 girls left on an Argentinian island with German South American heritage, and they're all up for grabs. That's why you got to make the 7-figure income with the fat stacks by drop shipping. Otherwise, you won't get one.
One of the most misunderstood. It's a post, but one of the most misunderstood principles, I think, that sort of dovetails into this really nicely, is the idea of the quote unquote quality woman. Where do I find a quality woman? Right? You find her in church. You find her in Bible study. You find her in the school library. You find her at Barnes and Noble looking for, Russian philosophers or something. You find the girl anywhere but the clubs, anywhere but where, skanks congregate, right? That's the idea. But what guys don't understand is, like, when I say there's no such thing as a quality woman, what I'm saying is that's an ideal. That's a fantasy. There's this thing going on in the back. Like, no guy would get married to a woman he didn't think was a quality woman. When you're standing in front of God and the priest and you're writing your name on the marriage certificate, you're not saying, this girl is really a skank. Why am I, how did I get to this point? No guy does that. They don't understand that when I talk about there's no such thing as a quality woman, it is an ideal. It's this fantasy we sell ourselves that, well, if we say somewhat like, there's no such thing as a quality woman, but women are just women. It's okay. It's okay to accept women for the nature of those women. I mean, hedge your bets. I mean, work within that framework, work within the red pill aware framework. And, people say, well, Rollo's a cynic, or he's cynical, or he's a pessimist or something like that.
So is Socrates. They jerk off to that guy.
I'm a pragmatist. And the reason that is what that is preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best, expecting the best. Try to make it work as best as you can, but understanding the mechanics and the limitations of the system that you're working in. Yeah. So why is that so fucking hard to realize? Well, it is because these guys have been brought up on fucking Mary Poppins and cupcakes and whatever else, crayons. Right?
Yeah, well, that's
get your crayons out, cupcakes.
Yeah, crayons and cupcakes.
That's the thing. I mean, it just seems to be pragmatism. It just seems to be pragmatism to me. It seems to be, okay, what is observable reality, and what is reality to the best sense that we have it from the data that's available, from the studies that are available, and and that's where the red pill came from, if you like, or that's how that for me is what the red pill is. It's extreme pragmatism. Now, that doesn't mean that you then become this kind of nihilist and you don't have relationships if you don't want them, or you don't have friends, or you sit in you become this sort of embittered kind of person that they seem to think that that all pickup artists and all red pill people are. You've just got to know the game that you're playing, and then beyond that, you try and make it work as well as you can. But yeah, I mean, it seems to me that we've got an issue now of sort of pragmatism and realism against fantasy, which is peddled by other guys who are sort of trying to create this alternative world where, yes, but if you just use crystals, then it could all be like this. and it's only broken people who don't get that. And I just think it's damaging, because I think it's selling guys a false dream, really, that just doesn't compute.
I think red pill guys, red pill men, like when you're looking at guys like myself, like Ryan, like you guys, like when we're looking at guys who understand the mechanics, and we're red pill aware. I've been married for 23 years. I owe at least a good chunk of the success of, whatever you want to define as success, of my marriage, to being red pill aware and to internalizing it and making it part of who I am as a man, part of who I am as a husband and a father and everything else. Right. I'm not saying that I hate to use my marriage as a benchmark for like what guys can expect. Like, well, Rollo has a perfect marriage. Maybe if I did what he said, I'd be, no, that's not going to happen, because I'm not you, you're not me. But I think that guys who are red pill and are not purple pill, or are not black pill, or not, because we're kind of like, we get it from both sides, man. We get it from the black pill, because right now, the conversation we're having right now, there's guys in the black pill who are just like hurling up in disgust, because they're like, I can't believe they're trying to get guys to go out and go on dates. I can't believe that. Monsters. Monster. How could they,
dare we?
And we're in some circles, like really hardcore MGTOW or black pill circles, we are worse than feminists, because we're trying to encourage guys to actually go out and go date and actually go have an honest, pragmatic relationship, or spin plates or whatever with a woman. And so they'll lose their minds about that. And then on the opposite side, we've got tradcons, and we've got purple pill guys who want to say, well, those guys are just telling you to go and screw everyone. Pretty much the same thing that the black pill are saying. They're just saying from a different perspective. Like, well, they're telling you to go out and spin plates and screw women and get as much as you can and be all about you. And they're not looking toward the future, where we need to make sure that white babies are gonna, are gonna be, we're not gonna ensure the race, and we all have to get together and have a pro-social way of getting together and manning up. And
speaking of which, too, if they want more white babies, why are they suggesting you wait 3 months? Wouldn't you be getting in there right away, just in case?
Yeah. I mean, look, we've got to save the West. I mean, we need to get on with this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of? Have you heard that driving adage where anybody who drives faster than me is insane, anybody who drives slower than me is an asshole?
An idiot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. And it's like when I look at the I think there's an appeal to the red pill certainly from purple pill guys, because they want to get in on what is a marketable niche. I've talked about this last year at the 21 convention in my State of the Manosphere address, that we're dealing with guys who are more interested in the brand of me and their own personal brands and their own personal, whatever, they're looking out for number one, and they're not looking out for the message, and they're not looking out for others, but they have to find some way to be marketable about that. And so they get in on the red pill, and they will say, yeah, the red pill's great, but let's put all of this crap on there that appeals to the widest possible audience. Then you've got the black pill guys who are like completely the opposite, would be completely the opposite, but they also have to have some sort of red pill understanding and red pill awareness for them to go completely off the rails and say, don't bother with it. It's, just curl up.
It's sour grapes with a podium.
Curl up into the fetal position and hope it's over soon. And that's just, you can't live in either way. So I know where I'm going with that.
I don't know. What's your thought, Jax? You've been quiet there for a while.
Yeah. I've been
You're kind of the newest guy to this space anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, welcome, Jack, to Rules Zero.
Thank you for having me. Really, wow. But okay, first of all, I think it's ironic that Rollo gets the biggest shit for being a woman hater and ruining Western civilization, while he is the man who has the longest marriage in this space, to my knowledge.
Yes.
Like 23 years, something like that.
23 years with a 21-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Roosh found 5 years in Eastern Europe, so game and match.
I mean, all the guys who are giving him beef are either divorced or never married. Or they're married and their wife doesn't like them, Mr. Crystals. I've seen your pictures. I know body language. I know my body language. And yeah, you get it? Yeah.
But see, here's the thing is like there's always going to be an audience for people who want to be told They want that comfort. One of the reasons why like a guy like Matthew Hussey is successful, or Mark Manson is somewhat successful, or these guys who like have this appeal to basically a spinster audience, is because they sell a fantasy. They sell the idea that you can live in this particular way if you just follow these particular rules. I think one of the problems that the purple pill and the black pill have with us is that we put the tools on the table. We say, here's the nuts and bolts, here's the statistics, here are the facts, as be as objective as possible. Here are the facts, here's the tools to use. Go ahead and use these. Well, what these guys do is they say, well, those are the tools, but you should use them this way. And black pill is the same thing. Well, you shouldn't use them at all.
Yeah.
And so you've got trying to be this as objective as possible. And now I understand it is impossible to be 100% objective about stuff. My bias, you guys' bias, everybody's bias is going to shine through in some way, shape, or form. But that doesn't mean you don't try. You have to try to be objective. And so, but the thing is objective truth does not sell. When I was talking, or was it a quote from 48 Laws of Power? Never appeal to truth unless you are prepared for the anger that disillusionment engenders in people, right? Never appeal to that truth unless you are going to create compelling fantasies, create compelling spectacles, create, you will be an oasis in the desert. And that's what these guys think that they are. So when I look at
dealers, not methadone clinics.
Well, when I read a guy like, and everybody's doing it right now, like I said, because the barrier to entry is so low. So I read a guy like Tucker Max, or I look at a guy, if you look at Tucker Max and Mark Manson and Todd Valentine, who used to actually have some decent actionable stuff. Now his girlfriend, he's married or he's got a kid on the way. Whoa, lo and behold, all of his entire outlook changes. So when you got guys like that, you got Mark Manson, you got Matthew Hussey, you got all these, I mean, there's so many, Evan Mark Katz is another one, like all of these guys. And then you go and you throw like a guy like Pat Stedman into all of this. It's like you're low budget compared. I mean, these guys have been here forever, sucking on the same market that you're trying to appeal to right now. What are you going to do that's going to be different than these guys who haven't already done this with like, million strong subscriberships on their YouTube channel? What do you like? What separates you from the pack? What makes you the guy that everybody should be coming and paying $700 for 3 hours on a phone?
Energy.
Women.
What is it?
Energy.
Crystals.
Crystals. Yeah. Brazilian power crystals.
But I think it's interesting that we're getting into this woo-woo type stuff now with those guys. And I think the reason, I think there's a very good reason for that. I think because the woo-woo stuff is unassailable because you can't.
Yeah, it's the God factor. Yeah, you
can't really analyze it. And if you say talk about energies, it's something that can't really be properly analyzed in an objective way. And then if you say, well, actually, that's all woo-woo bullshit, then they can say, but that's because you're a degenerate and you're typically the kind of guy that wouldn't understand this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be when you're on a higher tier of energy, you can understand what I'm talking about. Because you, Troy, are on a low tier of energy, you can't understand it. So it becomes unassailable. They're sort of their position is hermetically sealed within this bubble that you can't attack, because they'll just say, well, obviously Troy doesn't get it because look at him. Whereas when you're a God-fearing trad, then you'll naturally understand this stuff. And then the guys who buy into it go, oh my God, yeah, I'm like that. I know what you're saying. And then they'll buy the counseling calls. It doesn't alter the fact that it is still bullshit. It's just that's how I think they have to use something that isn't really assailable by logic in order to sell their position, if you see what I mean.
That's why I love the answer to it is, how's that working out for you? Get them to map it to some success. And that's where you get the difficulty in them being unassailable.
Well, and I don't think enough people really realize that the stuff that they're buying into or the stuff that they're selling is not new. It's not novel. It's not something that it's new in the sense that it's easier to do now than it's ever been before. So when I go and I look at like something like, say, from Dr. Babe or whatever, and she talks about like, the energy between a man and a woman, and I first thing I say is, do we have some sort of way
Is
of
it measurable?
Yeah, can we measure that energy? And it's like, oh, you're just taking me out of context. No, I'm just repeating. I want to know what this energy is because this sounds revolutionary.
Yeah,
It has something to do with crying in your car about how you can't find a man at 38. I think that's the energy.
Yeah, okay. Well, and in some ways, I feel bad for women in that position because they believed into this bullshit lie and they're trying to turn themselves around. Whatever, okay.
But that's great. That's your journey, not everybody else's.
I mean, whatever, okay. But when women, or as I said, women, when I hear guys who are in this woo-woo tip, and I think it's intensifying a bit more, and I've seen this before. Okay, I've seen this. A lot of the stuff that we're going through right now, we went through in 2015 prior to the election. What we're seeing is a repeat of that right now. And I will guarantee you in the 2020 election cycle, we will see everybody who was red pill suddenly finds Trump. They don't find God, they find Trump. Because that's marketable. They go with whatever is marketable. I remember when Mike Cernovich decided he wanted to be a reporter. Instead of being a guy hawking mindset books and nootropics, he wanted to be a citizen. He wanted to be Tim Pool. He wanted to be a reporter, and more power to him. Go ahead and do it. That's the hustle. But the hustle, and anybody who's read my piece called False Positives, there's a balance between the hustle and actually truth. Okay. And so what are you selling? Are you selling hustle or are you selling the truth? Is there actually a stake or is it all the sizzle? And so what you see is when things are trending in society, particularly in Western culture, in this global marketplace that we're in right now, online, you will see guys aiming their message to the broadest audiences possible. And when I see that, great. I know what I'm getting into. I know what I'm getting. But don't tell me that you are out to help guys. Don't tell me that you're trying to keep the noose off of guys' necks. Especially when I hear from these guys exactly the kind of dangerous shit that will put a gun in a guy's mouth.
Well, there was a piece of science of research that was being shared on Twitter earlier in the week, which said something like female desire within the first few years of marriage falls more. It starts at a lower level than the male, desire, and it falls more quickly. And I'm sure I could find that. I'm sure we could pull that up and we could have a look at it. Now, that was a published scientific peer-reviewed paper that was published, and those were the findings. Now, you might disagree with that. You might say, well, okay, what was the data set? Was it, I don't know, what circumstances were, what questions were asked? How was it conducted and everything? I mean, you could pull that apart in a sort of a academic way, but on the one side, you've got that, and you've got that kind of research. And then on the other side, you've got these guys saying, yeah, but it's all about the energies, man. It's like, what tier of energy are you on? So you're putting sort of empirical research on one side up against this kind of woo-woo bullshit on the other side. And that I find troubling, really, because I think we're coming into a sort of almost like a post-truth kind of a space, or certainly
I was going to say that sounds just like postmodernism, the way Noam Chomsky described it. He saw the hard sciences. Oh, they have fancy jargon. Well, we can have fancy jargon. They got research. Well, we'll have research.
It's L. Ron Hubbard, man. It's Scientology.
Yeah. I mean, apply Occam's razor and everything falls apart. Yeah, I mean, it's true, because that whole crystal and vibing narrative.
It's your midi-chlorian count.
Oh, Yoda, really? We're going there, Qui-Gon? No, but seriously, it's cheat codes. It's cheat codes. Like, no, you need to have your crystals in balance and your midichlorians and your Jedi mind tricks in order, and your lightsaber has to be green instead of blue, and it shouldn't be red. Farthest from red it could be. But it's just giving guys false hope. It's all false narratives. Like, when
it's weird too when you have some success, because it's like watching an 8-year-old in a wedding dress. Like, all the parts are there, but it's just wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys, and I had this discussion with Sean Smith, Dr. Sean Smith, one time. He came up to me one time. He says, "Don't you think that there are some guys who need the blue pill? That they need that thing to keep them going. They need that to, even if it's false hope, at least it's hope, right? It keeps them going." I mean, I think there was a really, I think I linked this to you as well, Troy. The debate between Molyneux and Stephen Woodford from Rationality.
Yeah.
There's a point there where they're trying to make this. They're trying to throw out this idea is like, if you were given the choice between telling people the truth or and having them possibly die, or giving them, you know, sweet sunshine bullshit and keeping them alive, you know, what's your obligation to? And
Dude, Americans talking about that's ridiculous. That aren't you guys the land of give me liberty or give me death?
Godsod talked about that as well. As Godsod, I like the way he puts it out. Is he says, I have an obligation to the truth. I haven't, and when I see an insult to the truth, I have to be. I feel like I have to be somebody who's going to go and correct that. And then, like, I think about the conversation I had with Dr. Smith, and I was like, you know, in some ways, I guess I understand that, because a lot of people are going to say this, and maybe this is a tough question for us to answer. They're going to say, well, what happens when a guy gets all of this truth that you're giving them, and they go black pill and they go incel, and they decide to off themselves, or they decide to go and kill a bunch of women because they feel like they've been screwed in society, and they do know the truth, but they can't handle the truth, and it pushes them over the edge. What are you going to
the video games cause cancer argument?
The red pill causes cancer, right? The red pill and that's what they're trying. That's what we're trying to do right now, I think, with in the mainstream. And you're going to see this intensify a little bit more. All it's going to take is another guy, like another shooting, like the one we saw in Texas, and then that other one we saw in Ohio. Was it Ohio? Yeah, Ohio. Where it doesn't even matter what the actual details are. It's just going to say, well, this kid looked like an incel, so that's what you get when you get these red pill guys. And so you get this raft of articles saying, well, the red pill is driving these guys to kill women and to be misogynists. And I think it's really kind of sad, because when I go and I look at the work that I've done, and I've got people who, you know, fly out to see me talk and say, hey, you know, I just want to shake your hand and thank you for saving my life. I had a date to kill myself and I didn't do it. When I see that, and then I hear other people saying, well, you know, because of the information you're putting out there, and you're not selling them woo-woo magic, and you're not selling them on God, and you're not selling them on Brazilian power crystals, you're pushing them over the edge. You're making them lose hope. And so the blue pill was something that they based their existence on. And honestly, I think that's part and parcel of the purple pill, is they can't exist without some blue pill. They can't.
Think of how silly that statement is, by the way. This guy was perfectly sensible, a normal human being. Rollo put out 2 blog posts, and then the guy goes on a rampage. Like, come on.
Yeah, well,
this guy was clearly going to go on a rampage, and all he needed was for a dog to tell him to kill everybody.
So we also need to describe why that is. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking here, and yeah, Sean is kind of blue pill in his own right, but like when I put the truth out there, and I'm gonna phrase this in terms of RSD this time, because I don't want to talk about the other guys right now. But when RSD started getting guys in their seminars and guys in their audiences, and they're holding my book and they're reading my book while they're listening to RSD Todd or RSD whoever, you know, Shlomo, whoever. And they come up to them and they say, have you read The Rational Male? What do you think of The Rational Male? And it's gotten to the point where they can't ignore my book anymore, because guys are bringing the book with them to their gigs, right? And so they have to address it, and they have to say something about, you know, the contents of my book. And so they say, well, all of this stuff is true. He has a lot of good stuff in here, and it's really kind of the basis of the red pill, and it's pretty much the red pill Bible. But it'll make you angry. It'll make you despondent. It will make you suicidal. Don't get suicidal after reading The Rational Male. And the reason they have to do that is because they need to characterize the objective information that is in my book and is in our tweets and is in our discussion here. They have to objectify that, or they have to characterize that as anger, as something that is negative. Like, if you listen to those guys long enough, you'll just go and hate yourself, and you'll hate women, and you'll live a shitty life, because it's all just anger, and they don't know what else to do with it. There's no hope in it. And it's like, well, okay, what would you rather have? Would you rather have hope and lies, or would you rather have truth and actually have to think about things and have some sort of, you know, responsibility to that truth in your own life? And that doesn't sell. So when I go and I have the Rational Male there, and they say, what do you think of The Rational Male? They have to characterize it as negative, because it goes against the sweet bullshit woo-woo magic Brazilian power crystal bullshit that they're selling, because they can't sell you on that if this book says the opposite. So what do I do with this? They don't know what to do with it, so they have to make it negative.
But isn't that the thing, right? Like, what would make you more angry? Keep on failing and never knowing why, or fail, find your book, and finally find out why it's going wrong. I mean, you'll get angry in the beginning, like everything you thought was real is now turned to dust, but at least afterwards you'll have the answers. So I'm wondering, what makes somebody more angry? I would guess never finding the answers.
Well,
here, we got to end on this one. We're running short on time, but Jack, tell everybody what you got that's new, because a lot of people might not know who you are yet and where to find you.
Okay, what's new? Well, my channel is not very new, but I do weekly shows with Rob from Rob Says. Every Friday night, we're going to probably move that to Saturday night for next week. You can find my channel in the link in the chat. I also have a Twitter. You can find me there. I'll post that in the chat. And I am also the narrator of the Gendernomics audiobooks. And for Goldman's Go Forth, but we're going to post that very soon. And I hope to narrate a lot of more books of the Manosphere in the future. And from there, you can find everything I do. Links are in the chat.
Nice. And then you, Troy. You've been here a hot minute, but why not let them know how to find you again?
Thank you. So the best way to keep in regular contact with me is I've got a daily email list during the week, so you can access that. I'll put the link in the chat below. I'm on Twitter as well, Renegade Playboy. I think Ryan's put the link to my you can get a pack of my books about dating and game for the ridiculously low price of $39. I think Ryan's put a link to that in the description for this show, so have a look at that. On my YouTube channel as well, I've just put the link into the chat. If guys want to see more, I'm uploading sort of 3 to 4 videos a week at the moment on there. I'm aiming to get up to 1,000 subs very soon, so I can start live streaming. So check that out as well.
Nice. And Rollo, your turn, buddy.
I'm Rollo Tomasi.
You know who I am.
No, I just want to say I'm going to be doing. I did a show yesterday with Pat Campbell, which actually we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants, but it turned out to be a really good show. So if you want to go and catch the audio of that, just look on my Twitter feed or look on Pat Campbell's Twitter feed, and you'll pick it up. We talked about the new report on how men's unemployment is affecting women's perspectives for marriage, and we also talked about the epiphany phase, which I don't think I've ever talked about on his show anyways. Tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern time, I'm going to be doing my show, Rational Male 101, with Pat as well. I'm not really sure what our topic is going to be. It might actually follow what we talked about on Friday, though. So anyways, make sure you, if you don't follow me, if you don't follow any of these guys, please go and subscribe to all their channels. And that way you'll be able to pick up on when the next Rule Zero is going to be. We pass those things around. Other than that, I am on the road and I won't be back home in my studio until Wednesday of this week. So after that, like I said, I still have all these great plans to be doing these one-off videos, but I just have not been able to get to them because of life circumstances. So I apologize for that. But I will be picking that up again. I do Pat Campbell's radio show on Tulsa, Oklahoma. That is on Fridays at 9:05 Eastern. Check my feed or check Pat's feed for notifications for that. And then, of course, always pick up Rule Zero on Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. I think it's my turn to host, so it'll be on my channel on the next.
Yeah. Well, if you weren't out, it would have been on yours this time.
It would have been today, yeah. So anyways, that's what I got going. The other thing, I'm still working on book 4. It's in first round of edits right now, and this is the slog. This is where all of the work gets done.
I feel you. All right, and then on me, I'll just make this one quick. I got the newsletter. It's been winding down, so it's more like once a week now. Link to all my stuff's in the description. And apparently the most controversial and edgy pro-Jared analysis video out there. It was my last red pill coffee from this Thursday. So check it out before I get booted off of YouTube completely for taking the side of a dude dressed as Sailor Moon sending dick pics out. But we are where we are.
That's your favorite new quote, isn't it?
Dude, if he can get some, what excuse does any other man have? Like, really? But I'll leave it on that. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Like I said, you know how to find everybody. Keep looking into us. And if you haven't yet, buy another copy of The Rational Mail and give it to your little brother.
Yes, I could also use some good reviews if anybody is so inclined. I'm right now I'm being subjected to a review spamming from people who will go nameless. So if the spirit moves you, I could certainly use a good review on
Son
Amazon.
Of a bitch.
Yeah.
Damn Florida man.
Once again.
Anyways,
Yep.
All
All
right,
right,
catch
guys.
you guys later. Take care.
Bye.
And we're going off now.